When you marry someone, you think you know them. You think the vows you take mean something, that the person who stands beside you will be your partner through everything. I thought that about Emily. We'd been together for 9 years, married for 6, and I believed we were solid. Sure, life had gotten busy. I worked long hours at my construction company, and she'd recently been promoted at her marketing firm, but I thought we were still connected. Then, about 8 months ago, I started noticing changes. Emily began coming home later and later, always with some excuse about last-minute client meetings or unexpected deadlines. At first, I didn't question it much because I wanted to be supportive. But it wasn't just the late nights. She started dressing differently for work, wearing more makeup than usual. And there was this new perfume, one I'd never smelled before, that lingered on her even after midnight. The first time I asked about it, she smiled and said she just wanted to look professional for her clients. I wanted to believe her. Then one night, around 11:30 p.m., she walked in and I casually asked how her meeting went. She froze for half a second before saying, "Don't start this, Michael. You don't own me, so stop asking who I'm with." That hit me like a brick. We'd never spoken to each other like that before. My gut told me something was wrong, deeply wrong. Over the next few weeks, I tried to push the thought aside, telling myself I was being paranoid. But the inconsistencies piled up. Her late nights were happening 3 or 4 times a week. She guarded her phone like it contained state secrets. One morning, while she was in the shower, her phone buzzed with a text from a contact saved as A. All it said was, "Same place tonight?" My hand shook as I stared at it. I didn't open it because I didn't want her to know I'd seen anything. I needed proof before I confronted her. That night, I told her I had to work late myself, but instead, I drove to her office parking lot around the time she usually left for home. She wasn't there. My stomach twisted. I waited for an hour, and when she finally appeared, she wasn't alone. She was walking out of a restaurant with a man. At first, they couldn't see his face, but when he stepped under the streetlight, my blood turned to ice. It was Ryan, my own younger brother.
I just sat there in my truck, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My brother, my own flesh and blood. Ryan had always been the charming one, the kind of guy who could talk his way into or out of anything, but I never imagined he'd cross this line. They didn't notice me. They were too busy laughing, walking close enough that their hands brushed several times before Ryan finally put his arm around her. I watched them get into his car, my pulse pounding in my ears. I didn't follow, not yet. Instead, I drove home in a haze, my mind spinning. How long had this been going on? Did my family know? And the ugliest question of all, was there more to this than I realized? The next morning I acted normal, though inside I was boiling. Emily left early, saying she had to be at the office for a strategy meeting. As soon as she was gone, I called in sick to work. I needed answers. I started digging through old photos, text threads, and social media posts. That's when I found it. Pictures from a work conference she attended 6 months ago. In one of them, cropped almost out of view, I could see Ryan's unmistakable leather jacket sleeve. My stomach dropped. I decided to go to my parents' house to see if Ryan was around. When I got there, only my mom was home. I asked casually if Ryan had been seeing anyone lately. She hesitated, a fraction of a second too long, and said, "Not that I know of." But I could tell she was lying. That's when the paranoia kicked into overdrive. If Mom knew something and wasn't telling me, was she covering for him? Later that night, I waited until Emily fell asleep and then checked her phone. She had a new password. That was all the confirmation I needed. I knew I couldn't just explode. I had to be smart. If I confronted them without proof, they'd deny it, twist the story, and somehow make me look like the jealous, controlling husband. I decided then and there I was going to catch them red-handed, and when I did, I was going to make sure neither of them saw it coming.
The next few days felt like playing chess while blindfolded. I had to move carefully, think 3 steps ahead, and never let them know I suspected anything. I bought a cheap burner phone and a set of small GPS trackers online. Nothing fancy, just enough to keep tabs without tipping my hand. I slipped one into Emily's car under the spare tire compartment and another in the trunk of Ryan's. Then, I waited. The first night, nothing. The second night, Emily claimed she was working late. The tracker showed her car parked for hours at a hotel on the edge of town. I didn't go in. Not yet. I needed more. The third night, Ryan's car pinged at the same hotel. That was all I needed to confirm my worst fear, but it wasn't enough for the kind of revenge I had in mind. I started collecting everything. Dates, times, locations, even receipts I could get my hands on. Every lie they told became another piece of my case. I stopped sleeping in the same bed as Emily, pretending I was too stressed with work and crashing on the couch. In reality, I was planning the trap. I booked a suite in that same hotel, 2 doors down from where their trackers kept ending up. My plan was simple: wait, record, and end this all in one night. I didn't just want to catch them cheating. I wanted to make sure the fallout destroyed both of them. When the night came, I checked in, set up hidden cameras facing the hallway, and sat in silence, my heart pounding as I waited for them to walk into my crosshairs.
It was almost midnight when my phone pinged. Both trackers showed them in motion, heading straight toward the hotel. My pulse was hammering, not from heartbreak anymore, but from pure, cold adrenaline. I dimmed the lights in my suite and positioned myself by the peephole, camera in hand. A few minutes later, I saw them. Emily, wearing the same office blazer she'd left in that morning, and Ryan, in his usual smug grin, walking side by side down the hallway. They didn't even look around, just went straight into the room 2 doors down. I could hear faint laughter and the sound of the door locking behind them. I waited 10 minutes, long enough for them to get comfortable, then quietly walked down the hall and placed a small Bluetooth speaker outside their door. I played the voice recording I had from earlier that week. Emily telling me she was working late, and then slowly increased the volume until it echoed in the hallway. I knocked, loud enough to make them freeze. Inside, I heard sudden scrambling. "Who is it?" Emily called out, her voice shaky. I didn't answer. I just placed a hotel envelope under their door, stuffed with printed screenshots of their GPS logs and photos of Ryan's car parked outside this very hotel on multiple nights. I heard Ryan curse and Emily gasp. I didn't need to see their faces. The silence said it all. I walked back to my room, my plan far from over. The next morning, while they were no doubt still reeling, I sent every piece of evidence to Emily's parents, to Ryan's boss, and, most devastatingly, to Ryan's girlfriend, who had no idea he'd been cheating too. The dominoes began to fall instantly. Ryan's job called an emergency meeting he wouldn't walk away from. Emily's parents cut her off financially, and her phone blew up with messages from friends who now knew what she'd done. But my final move? That was still coming. Because I wasn't just going to expose them, I was going to make sure they had nothing left to stand on.
The fallout was even faster than I'd imagined. By noon, Ryan's girlfriend had plastered social media with my evidence, tagging everyone they knew. His company issued a statement about ethical misconduct and terminated him that same day. Emily, meanwhile, tried calling me dozens of times, first with fake apologies, then with pure rage, blaming me for ruining her life. I didn't answer once. Instead, I paid a visit to our landlord, armed with the fact that Emily's name was the only one on our lease. I calmly explained that I'd be moving out immediately, and since she alone was responsible for the rent, she'd have to cover it entirely. With Ryan unemployed and her parents refusing to help, she was trapped. I also froze our joint bank account, my money, not hers, and closed every credit card she'd had access to. Within a week, she was drowning in bills, behind on rent, and her reputation was in tatters. The last I heard, she'd moved into a friend's couch, and Ryan had skipped town to avoid more public humiliation. I didn't feel guilt. Not an ounce. They had planned to lie to my face for who knows how long, taking my trust and turning it into a game. Instead, I turned their little game into their downfall. I walked away with my head high, my life lighter, and a sense of closure they'd never have. Because while betrayal cuts deep, nothing feels better than handing back the knife and watching them cut themselves with it.